Hey, and welcome to Coffee Not Found, the podcast for the creative industry and gamification in general. I'm Colin, and this is Jack.
Hey.
Today's topic is social. We'll leave it in, but sure, social entrepreneurship and gaming. It's a complicated old world. So basically, we're kind of looking at gamification being used in kind of promoting charities and not-for-profits and kind of social enterprise.
Yeah, like using games and gamification in a way to sort of raise awareness or promote like social or civic issues, that kind of thing.
Very good. I'll be honest, this is one that's kind of close to my heart. I've kind of touched on this quite a bit and would have done kind of projects, particularly in the early stages of Nebula, where we just aimed at social enterprise and kind of giving back. And it's something that I still want to do. Before ever I started Nebula, I've worked in charities and not-for-profits before, so I kind of seen both sides of the equation, and I have a very specific take on it and on the charity side in general. I can see it mentioned here to chat about it. Like way back 3 years ago now, I did a TEDx talk on gamification and gaming and or gamification in charity, and basically not going the guilt trip route to chuggers in front of you. Give me money.
Yeah,
you
or
know?
the really black and white, sad sort of music, TV ad kind of thing. And like the thing I found is it's horrible to think of, but a lot of people just change channel because people don't like being guilt tripped. Yeah,
no, that's it. I was watching a holiday channel there recently, and in between so there was like, buy this holiday. This holiday is great. Look, this is where you go and this is where you stay. Really informative. And then it would be an ad break. And the ad break was, this is, such and such. He has to walk 600 miles through a field with no shoes. And you're kind of going, I can see why the charity's going, oh, this would be great because like you feel guilty. You're booking a holiday, 5 stars, and look at this poor fella. But I just think that kind of sympathy vote is very short-lived because you don't empathize with them, you feel guilty, and it's just guilt that's being the kind of spur on. Whereas when you use gaming and gamification, there's two elements to it. One, you're gamifying the giving, so there's a certain element of that feel-good factor that comes from a gaming environment. And then the other thing you're doing is you have the ability, done right, you have the ability to convey a story and an outcome. So, for example, if you're giving money to a charity, you can use gamification to show how that money has an impact. And that was the thing with the game we started building. Now, to be fair, it was mothballed because getting funding for gaming, especially one that's designed not to make a lot of money, is very, very difficult. Although to this day, it's still the most expensive section of game we've ever built. But it was about like you'd give money in the game to a charity, and then you acted as the charity on the ground, and you got to see what happens if you build a school in a village. So instead of going, here's a load of money, buy them crops for a year, and then not knowing anything, if you bought them, if you put in a school, the education level of the village goes up, their ability to generate their own revenue to do things for themselves went up. It was a nice way of conveying it in a faster manner as well, because obviously if you were to track a real school being built, obviously it takes 10 years for people to come out of the school. Sure, you've forgotten at this stage. So with games, you can kind of fast forward that. And I know you were showing me a game there just before this. Is
Lila and the Shadows of War. It's a game that was released in 2016, and it was based around the war, obviously, at the Gaza Strip, and which is forever on the news. And basically it was to raise awareness of like what it's like to live there as a child or as a family. And it's quite a heartbreaking game. It's done sort of, if anybody played Limbo before, it's very black and white kind of platformer or endless runner style game. And there's drones, you can have to hide from drones, and bombs come down, and you just have to survive the whole. It's about getting from one safe place to the next all the time, which is a great representation of what it really is like to live there. It's about getting from one safe place to the next, and there's not really much left there that's safe. But it's about the war, mainly in 2014 when it was really, really bad, and it got really intense in that year. And they basically released a story of a family and what they had to go through to get it. And it was featured at it's featured on Games for Change, their website, and it was a runner at the festival as well, and it's actually won quite a lot of awards. I've been on the Android store to look at it, and there's just the first screenshot is like it's just a load of awards plastered onto a black background, and it's done pretty well.
Very good. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I suppose from our perspective as a games company, you can churn out, like we won awards for ours, even though it was never finished, because we were able to kind of show the message, and they obviously theirs is made, but it's very difficult to fund that development. Because I always remember there was a quote, basically Bob Geldof, they were saying, like, all the work he'd done with Band-Aid and Live Aid, so you must be really successul and wealthy. And he says, well, no, I mean, I'm being known for charity work. He says, nobody ever paid to see Mother Teresa in concert. You don't have that kind of, what we say, that overlap. But and from what I saw of the game, it's quite a, it's about using a game experience to convey the feeling, and there are decisions to be made in it. Like
as the game progresses, the decisions get more and more difficult. And I only played the first couple of minutes of the game, and like some pretty intense like stuff happens between like family members dying, I didn't play on enough to know just yet, but
I can't imagine there's a happy ending at the end of it somehow.
No. But it's a great way to raise awareness, something interactive, something that goes straight to someone's phone. It's free.
Yeah.
There is some sort of there is a lot of obviously social sort of entrepreneurship games that are out there that are paid for, but this was, I think, quite a big project that was done in conjunction with Games for Change. So
it's a festival in LA and New York, is it?
It's based around LA and New York, it seems, from what I've seen anyway, and they kind of feature games from everywhere. One of the games that'll come up was built at a game jam in Vancouver. It was built in 48 hours, and it's done pretty well.
Okay, cool. So the next one I see on your list is Beyond Eyes.
Yeah, this is it's a story about a 10-year-old girl who, when she was a toddler, went blind from an accident. So it's to kind of put people in the shoes of somebody who's blind and how they kind of navigate the world. And you kind of have to you navigate the game using sort of listening and touch and feel. And I think there's probably quite a heavy emphasis on audio, the way the audio was developed. There's another one actually coming up about blindness as well, and that's a really interesting one. But so she's kind of got a fear of loud noises. Obviously she was made blind by a firework accident, so and doesn't really spend much time in public, and they kind of people from what I've read, people feel bad pretty much off the bat, obviously, but the character herself, I can't remember her name, Ray, she's actually completely content in her life because that's the way she lives, and she is even happier because you go out into the world because you're chasing after a cat that she befriended in her garden, and it runs off and she just wants to go find it again. But it's quite interesting. There is graphics to it. It's not a complete like sound immersive game where there's nothing else, but the way they represent the graphics looks really cool. Like you have to do certain things to get them to appear. So like you reveal the world through
very clever.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool game anyway.
Cool. Yeah, no, I haven't come across it now, but I kind of know the style of game, and it's again, that's one of those ones where you're conveying that she's actually quite content. Yeah, you're not going the woe is,
but it's still giving you that sense of awareness of this is how difficult it is. So it wouldn't be bad to give these kind of people a hand, people who need it. But
yeah, exactly. No, I have to say that again, and that comes back to not being the boy, not the boy, but that's terrible. The I call them kind of cringy, but the puppy dog eyes and
there's points obviously where she gets frightened and stuff like that, but it's pretty well done.
I've seen a 10-year-old kid, so okay, and then we have Third World Farmer.
Yeah, it's just like a building simulator, so like a farm building simulator, and throughout the game you have to make obviously decisions like growing crops, and do you buy a tractor and then send people to school, and you have to feed your family and everything, and it's based it's based obviously in a poverty-stricken country in Africa. It doesn't actually give the name, but that's from the landscape I've seen. I played it online as well. It's free on the web, like it's in a web player or something, maybe Unity web player or something like that.
All right.
And so yeah, you deal with obviously problems of like infrastructure and lack of education and sanitation and all that, as well as the trade barriers and army coming in. And I think at one point you can lease your land, from what I played, to the army to grow their own stuff on it or to put up camp or whatever. And then another one which was fairly real, but obviously that was the point of the game, whereas like you send 2 members of your family off to entertain tourists for like so many months of the year or something like that to bring back money and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's I don't know, as the game progresses it just gets harder and harder and harder to grow. And like in Farm Builders, your farm gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but in this game it becomes a lot harder for you to survive, never mind make your farm any bigger. And the decisions obviously get more desperate as the game goes on. Different things happen, like war or civil war or whatever, that kind of thing.
And that's it. I mean, and there's a certain point where the games are no longer game. It will eventually lose its appeal because people will get, like if it gets harder and harder like that, you're conveying to them just how bad it is, and almost the quit, this rage quit, this quit mentality that you might have, like, look, I'm not giving any more time to this game, is almost the biggest lesson, because it's like, I'm just not doing this anymore. And then you're kind of going, well, if I was in that position, I don't have that opportunity, and that, again, it's that mechanic, that game side of things that people wouldn't even think is part of it. It's like the worst thing you can have in a game normally is someone rage quits or quits out of it, but actually that's delivering the most important message of all of the whole thing, assuming they've done something in the meantime to do something about it. Because you can have a lot of games where you either feel good or you send a message and then 2 minutes later people have forgotten about it.
No, that's true.
Okay, where are we? Activate.
Yeah, this is quite a cool one because it's promoting sort of being active about social issues and civic issues. So like it's more of like a classroom kind of game. Okay. Teaching people how to be active about social issues. So you kind of start the game, and you can pick, you have a number of things like where you can be active about. So take up issues, help your family out, or start helping out at the dog pound, or then start raising awareness about this. I think I went down the dog pound route, so it's the one I know most about. But you have to try and volunteer or advocate some sort of a cause or civic issue in your area, and the game actually teaches you how to do that by these different mini games. So I know you can be in the dog pound feeding and looking after the dogs, or you fill out a journalist article to put it out in your local town or city to raise more awareness about it, and then you can hold bake sales and stuff like that in the game. So the game takes you through all these steps, kind of teaching you how you could actually do that in real life. So it's from what I've seen, it'd be quite popular in the classroom with kids and not teaching them to be sort of.
Because somebody approached me once and said, do you have a game that could teach 16 to 8, because there'll be a referendum next year probably in Ireland allowing 16 to 18 year olds to vote next year or this year, I'm not sure, in presidential and local elections, not general elections yet. And they were like, is there any game you can think of where you can convey that? But as I said to myself, unless you're going to do it in a classroom environment, it's extremely difficult to convey that message. And in this case, as you say, it's a classroom environment. It'll work. But then again, I say that, and then I look at the teenagers over in Florida, and I go, do you know what? People are smart enough. They can, if they get a cause behind them, they can go with it. But I like that. Again, it's a classroom
kind of
tool,
teaching social entrepreneurship almost in a way. It's teaching to be active about the problems of the world or the problems of your local area. Yeah,
and I suppose it teaches as well that just tweeting about a subject doesn't really do anything. Yeah. Like, I've tweeted my support. Okay.
Like in the game, you get your whole family on board, and it's I think basically it starts off as just helping out in the community, and it goes all the way to trying to get 100% support in national, like in the US, I think the game is based. So okay, all right, very good. And again, it's something I suppose that's very topical in the US at the moment, but even everywhere, even in Europe, particularly after Brexit, and all the young people who didn't vote suddenly annoyed about Brexit, and you're like, well, it's a bit late after the fact, but hopefully people will learn.
autism.
Yeah, it's a pretty much kind of a great play on words, actually. It's pretty much what it is. It's a simulator for people who don't have autism to try and help them understand autism and what it would be like to be in situations. Now, the developers did literally come out and say, look, we haven't catered for the whole spectrum, and we can't simulate all of it, and we just hope that we simulated it well. And all the comments I've seen is this is done quite well. One guy who's actually a live streamer, I seen a comment from him on, I can't remember what game site it was on, but he was saying, I actually streamed this to my fans because I myself have autism and wanted to show the situations that I get into and get caught up in, and how it can snowball from a bit of a worry to a full-blown panic attack and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's quite well done. If I can get some screenshots of it, I'll put in the video because it really best explains how it is. But it was built at that game jam, like I said, Hacking Health Vancouver in 2013. And it's available online for free, and they built it using Unity, so it uses the Unity web player.
Okay.
And it's a pretty cool idea. I found it just kind of shows you that sort of it has the audio and makes the audio super like hypersensitive and intense. So trying to help people feel like how someone would in that state, like if they're in a public panic or something.
Yeah, like you see when you see people coming along and they have big noise cancelling headphones on. Cool. Okay. And then last one here, Blindside.
Yeah, this is the one I was talking about in relation to Beyond Eyes. This one there's no visuals at all. It's a complete audio horror game, all done with sort of binaural audio, and they make use of, like, obviously audio phenomenon, like the Doppler effect, to know how close you are to something or how far away something is gone. Or it's pretty intense. Like, there's creatures who eat people, like, running around the city. I think the whole city goes blind. Okay. And it's inspired by a developer on the team who experienced temporary blindness when he was in high school, and just realized how scary it actually was for him, and he rolled with the whole idea of doing that. And it's available on iOS, Mac and PC. And the cool thing about iOS is when you rotate with your phone, it rotates you in the world. And it's you obviously play it using stereo headphones, so you can get how the world is based. And it's quite a difficult game. Like, they even outright said it, like it's quite, they did aim it sort of for the serious gamer, but it was made to be accessible to any kind of serious gamer. So it's kind of weird to see something crossing off those two areas. Like, there is difficulty, like there is a learning curve to it. So like, it's really getting, like, you would have to put time into it. So if you were blind and you were trying to play the game, like, it's a good game to play it, and there'd be quite a lot in it for you to do. So and it's for everybody as well. So
no, it's interesting. It sounds a bit like, I can't remember the full name of the movie, but the Triffids were in it. It was now we're going way back before my time even, but basically I was playing Hangman with a guy one day, and like he had it laid out, and like literally there was just a ton of words on the page. And it took, like, I don't think I even got it, and it was because the word made no sense. Triffids just didn't stick. I was like, how the hell can that be a word in it? Yeah. And he was like, it's a movie, it's on tonight, it's a cult. And I was like, I have to watch this. But it's basically there's a meteor shower, and everybody goes out to watch it. And anyone who watched it goes blind the next day. So suddenly basically half the world is blind. But as part of the meteor shower, these plants come down. I think they may have remade it, I'm not sure. But these plants come down.
I know the concept, all right. I might have seen something.
Yeah, they're a bit, like, I mean, the special effects are a bit naff. Like, it's around the same time as War of the Worlds the first time around, maybe, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That kind of, but like, the plants are moving along, and it's a real insight into human nature. Because the guys who can see, some of them are really helping and trying to bring the blind people along, but other people are like, the blind people are slowing them down. These plants are attacking and killing people. So in one case, there's like, the guy goes, look, we're just going outside to check our area, and you just leave. Leave the blind guy in there, and they're like, hello, help, and it's a really interesting play on it, but I totally sidetracked, but just it sounds a bit like that kind of premise of the game.
It's interesting. And another thing I seen was a summit, the first summit there. I think it could have been at the one in 2017, one of the games festivals around social entrepreneurship and gaming and that kind of thing. Was the first VR for Change meetup, I think, where they could obviously start using VR apps and AR and that. And I realised during my research that there are many ORs, that there's VR, AR, XR and MR.
Yeah.
Which I didn't realise. I didn't realise there was much of a difference between some of them, but there actually is, which I didn't get at all, but yeah.
No, there was a project that I looked at, a crowd in the UK did it. I think I sent on the link, but I can't remember the company now that did it. But it was for like, there was two, but there was a Macmillan Trust one, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
And basically you put on a VR headset and it was flowers all around.
Okay.
And flowers would open up and a person's name would appear. And basically it was just all the people impacted by the trust and by cancer, I think. And it was just to give everyone a voice, you know, and just the sheer volume of people that were there and everybody who had contributed. I think it was people who had left money to the trust or something like that, or had but I mean, it was just to give that sheer impact of the number of people.
Yeah, show that volume.
Yeah.
They do that with a lot of campaigns I've seen up in the colleges here. Like if there's a sort of mental health awareness week, they put out like, I don't know, Trinity put out backpacks on the big area for the number of students who'd commit suicide in Ireland because of like, for whatever the reasons were, but like they're trying to central it around exam stress and stuff like that, and to speak out about problems and that kind of thing. But it's such a shock when you see the actual volume represented by physical objects. Yeah. Same with that. That's why they have that Holocaust Memorial in Berlin as a reminder of like, this is so much of this block is so many people and there's this many of them and that kind of thing. I've seen it done. I think they did it in the UK for the poppies, for the Poppy Day, where like everybody who died in World War One, I think. I definitely have seen it over in Japan for the kind of Nagasaki, Hiroshima kind of, the number of people killed in one day and subsequently. And it's amazingly poignant, but to do it on an actual functioning, real world scale, it's extremely expensive. You need the space, you need the time, you need, it takes coordination. The nice thing about VR is you can do it. If you have that headset, you can set it up and so it works really well when done in the right environment. But I'm trying to think. Is there any others that kind of spring to my mind outside of the kind of the research? But as I say, it's something. Yeah, we've touched on it quite a bit. Like obviously, it's with our game, which had been called, domain name is still ours, I think, Kesho Town, and basically. Like he's a bit like the Third World Farmer one where you're building a bit, except we did it. Again, it was important for me not for it to be this dark. I wanted to show, because I haven't done it now, but I have friends who were either in the Peace Corps or were volunteering abroad in different places. And the thing they said was that it's actually not, while it is sad from someone looking in, from their perspective, there are a lot of really happy people there who just, get on with it and get going. And actually, they're an inspiration. And like when you convey things in the sad element, you lose that inspirational element. And even to the point where I had to laugh. And we actually did incorporate it in the storyline for the game that we had built this far. When you build a well. So we were... The friend who was in the Peace Corps, she was where they built a well in Tanzania. Okay. And so they built the well, and so the women and children were the ones that used to get the water, particularly the women. So they'd walk off 6 miles to the water and 6 miles back. So suddenly they had a well. And actually the men in the village went nuts because they were like, suddenly the women were around more and they were having to do stuff, and they were like, this isn't like, and they were actually annoyed about it in some ways because they were losing their time that they had. So it's just interesting to see that, there is that. Yeah, there is a side to things. Side to everything. Yeah. Obviously, it's very difficult still, but like everybody, like should just. The amount of times you've been to a funeral and everybody's having a great time. The best laugh you have. You're trying to, you obviously remember the person and everybody mourns, obviously, but like you also remember them in a good way too. It's kind of that thing. Yeah, that's it. Inspiration or whatever. But, and I think that's the part that. I just find, and again, it grates on me, which is why the TEDx talk came about, was because,
you know, you're complaining, not complaining, but you're
Gets lost in translation.
Translation because you're so busy trying to pull the guilt string that you don't think about the empathy or the emotion side of things. Whereas, and to be fair, in a game,
so desensitized to that sad music coming on now at this stage, and that, like, there are some really awesome ad campaigns, and respect to the people who film them and put them together and that, but there's just so many people nowadays who just don't think of it, like, who just, it comes on and your instinct is literally to hit a switch or to just go make a cup of tea, because that's ad break time. I know in Ireland there's dads are on go make a cup of tea, you know? And
you still watch normal TV?
Not
Netflix,
really,
man.
no.
Netflix. I mean, I totally agree. I just I'd much rather the you know, tell the positive story, have people get engaged, and then have people realize
show what you can do.
Show what you can do, and like our lead character in the game was Sega. I think that's how you pronounce it. She was Ethiopian, but it was Tsega. We never did do a copyright check to see whether we get a angry note from Sonic, but she was she narrated any of the videos that we did and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But she was, you know, basically my direction when we were creating that character. And again, we haven't built the game, so I can't get sued for something we never. Basically, she was the equivalent of a Lisa Simpson. You know, she was that kind of funky go-get-em character who had a younger brother who was always getting. You know, there was you know,
dynamic
between them. And I thought that was important that, you know, you kind of convey, look, these are real. It's not.
Yeah, it's real people,
real problems. You know, and if you do give money, what happens with that money? And as well, again, I suppose when we concepted this game, particularly, well, more so it was quite a big local issue around charities not being very good with money, you know, as in, and it happens with all charities when they get bigger, because if you give money directly to someone who needs it, all the money goes to that person. If you give the money to a charity, over time the charity ends up having a bureaucracy. So suddenly they have to pay for servers and email accounts and travel and PAs, and it was not PA, like PR and all this stuff. Like, I can't remember. I quoted the statistic, I think, in the TED Talk, but it's gone out of my head now. But it is an obscene amount of money per donor that you have to pay to get a donor. I think it's, if the person is looking, you know, if they ask you, was it €4 or £4 a month? It's about a year before you make a profit on that person and the money actually goes to the charity, because up until that point you're paying for the ad to be made, the company to be run, the advertising slot on the telly, all these things, and it's just it can get lost. Whereas if crowdfunding, I love, like, there's a lot of these sites now that do crowdfunding for charity projects.
Yeah, we're back.
Don't know where you lost us.
We got through a lot of stuff before that.
I think we're safe enough. We've got content. But yeah, no, so I mean, as I said, that's why I could talk about this one for hours, and have done in the past and probably will do again in the future. But in terms of bringing it back to what Coffee Not Found is supposed to be about and everything, it's, you know, it's using gamification in creative ways to get a message across. And that's exactly what gamification allows you to do, particularly in not-for-profits and the social enterprise sector. And I would encourage people to look at that and maybe have a bit more of a not pay more attention to it, but
we've kind of been through the whole how gamification can be used to market and make money and stuff, but like, you can make money another way too. GoPro just died, you can ignore that.
We've stopped
that, or it stopped by itself because it was running for so long.
Possibly, or well, at least we're mounting it in a way now that it can't fall on someone's head anymore. Yeah, that's true. We're also really close to the end of the battery on our Zoom, so we should probably say good luck. Okay, all right, well, fair enough. Well, I introed, so you outro. Yeah, so this has been Coffee Not Found in association. This has been Coffee Not Found in association with Nebula Innovations, and we'll see you next time. If you want to find us on social media, we're at Coffee NF on Twitter, Coffee NF Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and then Coffee Not Found on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. And coffeenotfound.com. Because we finished the website. We have our website now. Yeah. Colin subcontracted the head. Yeah. There's a website. Yeah. Okay. Bye. Good luck.